Welcome to 2026. This might be take one of this podcast because I just came off recording 2 episodes, which means I have been talking and listening for the past 4 hours, and I feel, but hey, that's the, that is just the reality of, of the podcast, is trying to always be creating content and be speaking to new people and doing all the things. So, the equipment's set up. We're here. We are going to have a little chat and I guess give you guys a little bit of an update as to what has changed in the past month, which has been a lot. So first of all, if you are new here, my name is Hannah Octavia and I host Seasoned Professional, which is a podcast dedicated to exploring the lives of those around us. I like to say that we are exploring the lives of the seasoned professional, and realistically, I've actually never said that before, but I'm thinking this year that perhaps I need to come up with some sort of slogan, and perhaps something to do with seasoned professional would be ideal, because then it would be talking about the name. Anyways, going off track. But basically, I speak to people in all walks of life about their career, their life, who they wanted to be when they were younger, who they are now, how that has evolved and changed, or in some cases stayed the same. So that is a little spiel behind what this podcast is about. Today, I do not have any guests on the podcast. It'll just be me, myself, and I talking to the lovely people who are listening. Just to give you, first of all, I would like to say thank you, because if you have ever liked a post or listened to a podcast or watched a YouTube video or done anything that supports this venture in any way, thank you so much. I know how hard it is to capture people's attention, and for even for myself, when I'm consuming things, it's sometimes hard to maintain interest. And because this is long form content, because I am asking people to take this large chunk out of their life to listen, it just means so much for the people who actually do, and who I am hoping are gathering some positivity, some lessons, some reassurance that things take time, which is something that I am consistently reminding myself of, and then consistently forgetting all over again, because that is just how life works. So yeah, big, beautiful, heartfelt thank you. The next thing is, on Friday, we have finished our fundraiser. So for those of us who don't know, back in November, I donated 12 inches of my hair to the Little Princess Trust, which is a UK charity that provides free wigs to children who are facing hair loss from cancer. And then if there's any additional resources, they also provide wigs for children who have lost their hair from alopecia and other conditions where that might happen. And they also help aid research specifically for childhood cancer. So it's a fantastic charity, and it was a pleasure to be able to donate to them. And together with our community, we've actually reached our goal, which was 700 Great British Pounds or 1,300 Canadian dollars, which is wild because that is a huge amount of money. The fact that people chose to use their hard-earned money around the Christmas season to give back in that way it's really touching, and just to see the support from the community has been wonderful. So if you were at all a part of that, whether that be, sharing, donating, doing any of the things, talking to your friend about it, just thank you so much, because now my hair will be made into a wig for a child, and, allowing them just to get a little piece of their identity back. With the donation of my hair, I also filmed the very first out of studio podcast. It was much more interactive because it happened while my hair was being cut by the lovely Simon Webster, who is a very well-known hairdresser. He owns a hair salon in Brighton, where I used to live. Very sad to say used to, but anyways, we'll get into that after this. He spoke about, working with people who are going through treatment and just the profound effect of having hair again, and how that can really change the outlook and the perspective of someone who is struggling right now. So it was just like that added layer of meaning towards the donation. Being able to speak about it with someone who has been up close and personal with hair loss through his clients was a really eye-opening experience. I will post that. I will pop that link down below if you'd like to listen or watch. I would recommend watching because it's quite interesting to see, and yeah, it's just cool to look at. And then I guess the next update is I moved back to Canada. So I moved to Brighton in May of 2023. No. Yes. No. Yes. Was that correct? I don't know. May 2023. And I was on a youth mobility visa. They typically last 2 years. Mine then expired and I redid it for another year. And in that time period, I dragged my boyfriend out. And he was very, very lucky enough to actually get his British citizenship. Weird and wonderful ways. It benefits if your parent is born in another country. There's no issue with visa for him. He can work there and it's all good. As my life goes, I had to drag him out there, and now I'm having to, for lack of a better term, drag him home. But basically, he is back, I am here, and we are back doing long distance, which is just a journey in itself. When he finally moved over with me, it was like, I'm never doing long distance again. That was terrible. I'm so glad we're together again. And, after living together for the past 2 years and then coming back, moving in with my parents again, not being with him, there's been like so many oh my God, just I don't even know how to describe it other than it's almost like a head shaking. It's like, how has my life changed so much? And how have I gone back in time to living with my parents? And, it's just, I'm still in the process of transitioning to my new reality. And, as I speak right now on January 11th of 2026, I'm not working consistently. I'm still waiting for my police check to come through. And there's just so much uncertainty. And, even though I've really enjoyed having my time in Brighton and, living with Clay and having all these wonderful experiences and traveling and doing all the things, I don't think stability has been my number one thing for quite some time. I held a brief position teaching, but then it was kind of back to supply work and back to nannying, and I'm always kind of bopping about. And so I suppose my want for this year is to create a little bit more stability. And, I have got big visions for the year, both personally and professionally, and I'm just wanting to put my best foot forward in that sense. But yeah, it's been an experience. It's funny when you move back into your parents' house, especially around Christmas time. It's oh, everything's so cheery and wonderful. Everyone's so glad you're home because it's Christmas and everyone's happy. And then reality sits in. And to be fair, it hasn't quite set in yet. I've been home for exactly 1 month and 2 days. And honestly, I think it's been more of a positive experience than I was anticipating. I'm not sure if everyone in the family would agree with that, but in terms of my own perspective, it's been positive. Of course, having Clay in another country brings its whole load of anxieties with it, just because that is the way my brain works. And of course, not having him here with me does feel like a piece of my being is missing. But, you know, we're at a point, I suppose, in our relationship where it's like we have these goals for the future, and while the distance is unfortunate and not ideal, it's like we are able to have the space to continue moving forward, financially and in all the other ways, to eventually get to that goal. And it's just, it's one of those things. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. But in terms of the podcast and what you can anticipate for 2026 is lots more beautiful content. So like I said, I just filmed 2 episodes today. I have another very, very exciting project on Tuesday this week. It's yet again another out of studio podcast, a bit more interactive, a bit more fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. Ironically, the past 3 guests have all been vegan based. So we've spoken a lot about food and how like sharing meals and cooking and all the things kind of like integrate into our lives, because it is such a huge part of being a human and, being part of a community, being part of a family. That's something that regardless of your background or your experiences, it's like we've all shared a meal at one point in our lives, and it's like, what does that teach us and what does that leave us with? So very excited about that. And then in terms of the guests that you can expect for this coming year, we have got I would say the person that I have looked up to for the longest amount of time. She will be our first episode back next week. And do I tell you? Might as well. But I had on Lynn Johnston, who, if you're not familiar with the name, then you may be familiar with her work. She is the creator, the visionary, the everything behind For Better For Worse, which at its peak was in over 2,000 papers and read by millions of people. She wrote the comic strip that follows the Patterson family through, childhood all the way up to teenagehood, marriage, babies, all the things. And growing up, it was one of my staples, honestly. My dad used to read them, and I was introduced to the comic probably at around the age of 5. And I remember being in the top bunk of my brother and I's bunk bed when we lived in Toronto and reading the comic before bed. And I remember, because I was so young, my reading was still getting there, so I'd pronounce some words wrong, but in my head, one of the characters' names was Georgia. But to me, because I couldn't read fully, her name was Georgina. And to this day, this woman's name is Georgina. She is Phil's wife, if anyone is familiar with the comic. And it was, the amount of times over the years that I've been like, oh, I should email her, I should send her a letter, or I should tell her this, or I should do that, la la la, that I've tried to make that connection. And then I finally did. And the fact that I literally spoke with her for 2 hours is such a crazy, crazy experience. People always say when you meet your idols, it's it just feels surreal. And I would say that is absolutely the case. I feel like the beginning of the podcast, I was a little bit performative because I was almost like, oh my gosh, what is happening right now? How can I possibly be speaking to this person? How has everything happened? How has she answered my emails? How has this all come to be? And yet it did come to be. It was such a open, honest conversation. She shared so generously so many details of her life, and it was just a real pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with her. Now, should the stars align, perhaps we'll meet in person one day. And yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to sharing that interview with you all. We've also got some other bits coming out if I can work up the courage. Part of me is very uncertain whether some of the things that I have produced will be coming out, just because it's that added layer of vulnerability that I'm scared will trigger some level of just meanness and cruelty. And, so you know what I'm talking about. In December, before I moved back to Canada, I recorded a live therapy session with an OCD specific therapist, and we dived into the nitty-gritty of some of my themes, my triggers, my compulsions, just to provide people with, I suppose, a bit of context of what an initial therapy session could look like for them, kind of take away the stigma of it and the fear around it. It's funny, when I started the podcast, I was like, my goal is to make someone cry, because for some reason that is like the epitome of hitting like the emotional trigger in someone. Well, that was achieved. I did cry. No one else has cried on the podcast but me, but that's okay. Maybe one day. And people don't have to cry on the podcast. Like, that's just something weird in my own head. But it was a really emotional time. And what I normally do with the podcast is I film them and then I don't look at them for like weeks on end, because I'm like, it has to marinate. It has to like solidify. This is what I do when I take pictures as well. I remember being in high school, being like taking a picture of myself and then like immediately looking at it. You gotta let it marinate. You gotta get out of the headspace of this has to be perfect to a headspace of let's see how this went, which is why I kind of let it marinate. So I actually haven't looked at any of the footage or listened to anything that I said. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to take the time and look at that, and then see if it ever comes to light. But I suppose like my goal for this year, we had our first out of studio session with the hairdressing. I'm filming another one on Tuesday. We've got this therapy session. So I'm really hoping to integrate more of this like kind of interactive side of things. And just because I think it adds a really interesting layer to the content. And yeah, there is lots to look forward to. And I guess my final point actually is just to say that this year I'm really hoping to focus some more on Canadian voices. When I was, living in the UK, the majority of people were British. And now that I've moved home and this is where I was raised, this is where I grew up, this is my home, I really want to celebrate Canadian voices. So that is something that I'm also very much looking forward to, because I feel like there's so much to celebrate within this country, and I really am excited to see and learn from the people that surround me. You know, there's so many times where I'll, find an interesting brand or find someone I like to follow, and then I realize that they're Canadian. It's like, oh, wow, like we are just as capable as anyone else in this world to find success. And I think, really highlighting those voices that are doing good for our community and for our country, and just really celebrating Canadians is something that I want to focus on for the year. So yeah, if there's anyone that you'd like to recommend, please, please, please do send me a message on Instagram at Seasoned Professional Pro. Nope, that's not it. Don't send me a message on that. Seasoned Professional Pod. You can also comment on this video, on this podcast, and I can always get back to you there. But if there's anyone that you're like, oh, I'm interested about that story, or any profession that you're interested in as well, then please, please, please comment that down below. And yeah, I guess my goals for this year is just to continue developing the podcast, continue having beautiful conversations with beautiful people, and being authentic to who I am, which, is always a task in itself. It comes with its own its own challenges to consistently be honest, and sometimes we don't want to share the not so pretty things about ourselves, and that's why I'm still debating this whole therapy thing. Hopefully one day the world will see it. Yeah, I believe that can wrap up our first episode of 2026. I suppose I will leave you with lots of love and goodness for the future, because it's a brand new year, and whether you are a resolution type of person, a goal-setting type of person, a none of the above type of person, this is a fresh start. And it's a fresh start for you to find even more out about who you are. It's a fresh start for you to experience new things and explore new areas of your life. And I am so beyond thankful that we are entering the 2026 year together. So, with all that being said, I sincerely hope to see you all next week, because what else could you possibly be doing on a Tuesday? Oh, perhaps working. But anyways, please do subscribe, like, share, do all the things. And yeah, it's gonna be a good year. Mwah.